Hey everybody, Jem Schofield here with AbelCine, and in this video we're going to be talking about the brand new Flex Cine lighting system from Westcott. What I want to do here is talk about their new mats. I'm going to be talking about some mounting and lighting control options, and also this right here, which is their brand new Flex Cine DMX Dimmer. So let's get started. We'll start with the mats. We now have not only daylight and bicolor options, we have RGBW in the Flex Cine mat system. And they come in 1x1 and also over my left shoulder, 1x2 sizes in RGBW. We also still have daylight and bicolor mats. In fact, over my right shoulder, we have a light that I have been waiting for a long time, which is the 2x2 bicolor unit from Westcott. So these mats are great. The evolution of these mats includes a much more robust cabling system, which to me moves these from an owner-operator into, in my mind, a sort of rental category, which means they're more robust. Now, that being said, they have had a lifetime limited warranty and continue to with the previous mats and these. We also have grommets in all four corners of these mats, which means that you can use small bungee cords and you can put them around trees and other objects, which is great. Magnets in the corners on the back, another mounting option, and then of course the DNA of what we think of if you know the Westcott system, which is this Velcro-based mounting. And that allows us to take something like this, which is Jem Cine, which is this modular tube-based system, 1x1 aluminum tubes. And this has Velcro on all of the outsides. It has 3/8/16 taps here on each of the tubes. They come in different sizes, corner, straight connectors. It's an erector set of building frames out for light modification and mounting. This one, of course, is a 1x1, so we just go ahead and match that up with our Flex mat. And behind my right shoulder, I have a 2x2 Jem Cine, which is being used for that 2x2 bicolor Flex mat. So that's Jem Cine, which gives you lots of mounting options for these mats. But over on my right shoulder, along with that 2x2 frame, I am using a yoke, which is actually attached to those 3/8/16 taps that are on the actual frame itself. And over here we have one of the barn door systems, which is for the 1x1. In fact, I have a bicolor unit inside of there, and you can use that with a mat attached directly to it, or you can take something like this with the frame and attach it to that as well. So tons and tons of mounting options here for these Flex mats. And then there are tons of options for light modification, specifically for Flex Cine. We have these hard diffusers here. This one is the 1x1 version. I have the 1x2 version sitting behind my left shoulder on that 1x2 light. And what it does is it makes it read as a single source instead of seeing those individual diodes from the LEDs. Now that is also sitting inside of a softbox solution, which also is available for Flex Cine, and it has inside of it an egg crate that you can use inside of the softbox. So all of these different accessories available to you to build out the system. And of course, you can take Jem Cine and you can build those out for light modifiers with different fabrics for bouncing and diffusing your light as well. You can even take a look at the C47 DP and booklight kits, which are built around Jem Cine. Now, we also have an egg crate that's specifically designed for this hard diffusion, or they call it an egg crate for the hard diffusion, but it can be attached directly to the mat itself, which I'm doing right here, and also to the Jem Cine frames. So as you can see, incredibly modular in terms of lighting control for the system itself. Now it's time to move over here to really one of the most exciting parts of this entire Flex Cine system, which is the dimmer unit. And this is a DMX dimmer. It has wireless capabilities. It is backwards compatible with all of the previous mats that you have there. In fact, what you can do, and I'll just show it to you right here, is you can actually take any of the legacy Flex lights that have this smaller connector here, and you can actually attach it with this adapter cable here, which will then terminate to the new connector to use it with this dimmer unit. So really a very, very well thought out system, and includes, if you want, other options as far as extending the cabling here. So this is a 16-footer that you can get. So you can see from a rigging standpoint, again, it just sort of reinforces that whole concept that I had about moving from sort of an owner-operator into a rental and higher-end production type of solution. So the dimmer unit itself, let's go ahead and take a look at all of these different parts. So we have this dimmer here, and then we have our powering solutions, which we're going to take a look at. We can actually power this with a V-mount lock AC option here to mains, so we can use that. And we also have here a battery-based solution. And the thing to understand about the battery solution here is that based on the amperage of the new Flex Cine system, most of the time you're going to have to use a 26-volt battery solution. There are a couple of lights in the system that you can use a standard 14.4 based battery on the back of this, but most of the time you're going to need these 26-volt batteries and the appropriate charger to handle all of that. But beyond that, the actual dimmer unit itself. So we've got hardwired DMX, which you would expect nowadays from a system like this. We have USB here, which is for doing upgrades in terms of firmware to the unit. The control unit over here, and then probably the most important part, which is the wireless DMX control that you have over here. And we can set this up to not only be off when you're not using it, but to set up the dimmer unit as either the host or the client to basically a chain of DMX control. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and set this to the host unit here. I'm going to turn it on, and then what I'm going to do is, with it set to host, I'm going to hold down the Wi-Fi link here, and then when I've done that, it's going to light up here that this is now the host unit. But before we go into all of that wireless control, let's just take a look at some of the options that we have just using the D-pad and controller directly to our mat. And we can see what some of the options are here in the DMX controller. So we have source matching, we have gels, we have RGBW for intensity, we have bicolor, and then we can even scroll down here and we have daylight. Now you'll see different channels that are associated with these different options here, and they have to do with how many of your DMX channels are being used when you are choosing these different options. So for instance, RGBW plus intensity is taking up 5 channels, daylight is just taking up 1 channel, and then bicolor, because we are just going between and mixing those 2 colors, is only taking up 2 channels. 1 is actually for the actual intensity and 1 is for the color overall. Now we can go up here to gels and just click OK. We have Lee Technicals, we have Lee Colors, and we can go in and we can choose what those different colors are and also the intensity. If you hold down that center button on the D-pad, it will back you out of the menu you're in, and we can go ahead and then make other choices. Now, if I'm going to hold this button down and set this up for our DMX, we can go back to that first menu, go inside of here, and we can give this a DMX address. In this case, I'm actually going to leave that as 1, but what I do want to make sure that I'm going to do, and I've done that with my other light, is set that other light to 6, and I'm just showing you this as an example because 1 through 5 are going to be used for RGBWI for this particular mat. So my next addressable dimmer should be 6 in that type of situation. So now we're going to go down to RGBW, and we're going to choose that, and then I'm just going to go ahead and bring this mat over here so you can see what's happening as I make changes. So you can see over on the right-hand side that our intensity right now is set to 50. And I'm just going to go ahead and start to dial in actually some values related to the red, green, blue, and white channels. So you can see those firing off on the mat. And then I, of course, have control here over the intensity, which can get very bright even for the 1x1 of this unit. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring that down so you guys can see how that looks. And you can even see now the individual diodes of the unit and how they look. So tremendous amount of control. And now that I have it dimmed down, let's go ahead and take a look at some of the different options in terms of color and how intense that can become. So we'll go in here and we'll just take that red channel and we'll just start to increase that as I decrease green and blue and white. So you can see that now we're just controlling that red channel of the light. And then we can go in and start to add some blue inside of here and mix that with the red. And you can see that there's just a ton of options. And if I hold that top button up, I can actually save that as an actual preset. All right, so let's go ahead and connect through Wi-Fi here. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up a mobile device. And the first thing I want to do is actually go in here, and I'm going to go into my settings. And I can see with this set up now with that ad hoc network, I can go ahead and choose Westcott Dimmer as my ad hoc Wi-Fi network. So that's step number one. Next thing I'm going to do is go over here into the dimmer unit, and I want to go into mode and choose the mode that I'm going to be using, which in this case is RGBW, which I was taking a look at with you before. So now we're going to go ahead and just launch this third-party app here called Luminaire. And what I want to do first and foremost here is create a new project. So I'm going to say new project and press on that. And then I'm going to give the project a name. So I'm just going to go ahead and name this very quickly, and we'll just call this Flex Cine. And I'm going to click OK. And then that project has now been created, and I'm going to go ahead and select that project. So I'm going to go over here, and I'm going to press on plus. And we're going to go over here, and once we select that, we can go ahead and select a profile. And the great thing here is that Westcott's already inside of here. You just scroll down alphabetically and choose Westcott. And you'll see Flex Cine there. So we're going to go ahead and choose that. And then I'm just going to go ahead and choose how I want to use this light right now, which in this case is set up to RGBW. And then I have to choose that DMX address that I'm using for that particular dimmer. In this case, of course, it is one. So I'm going to go ahead and press done. And then it's going to go ahead and take me in here, and now I can actually start to make some changes in terms of these controls and the actual unit itself. Okay, so we're all set up here. Let me actually reconfigure this just a little bit so that it's easier for everybody to see what we're doing right now. So basically, we have our mat here now, which is being controlled now by Luminaire. And you can see here that I can change the color and the intensity. And there's a lot of other options inside of this app. I can bring up these color wheels here, and I can change them by color. And then we can actually set up other lights with this whole system. So as I said before, the 1x2 behind me is also set up to one of these dimmers. The big difference is this is set to host, which is creating that ad hoc Wi-Fi network. That is set to client. So we already have one Wi-Fi network. So what I'm going to do is just add a second unit here. So I say plus, I'm going to say DMX fixture. I'm going to go through the same exact process. Select a profile, and then after I've selected that, I go to Westcott and Flex Cine, DMX Dimmer, RGBW, and then this time I'm going to choose 6 as my DMX address because that's how I set it up. Remember, 1 through 5 is being used for this, for RGBWI. And so now that we've connected to that other fixture there, you can see that we have control over both of these using the Luminaire app. And now we can go into and individually control all of the things having to do with each of these lights. And again, I can bring that color wheel up, and just tremendous flexibility overall with what you can do here. So I think what we should do is get out into the field and actually check out how to use this Flex Cine system in the real world. So let's go ahead and do that. So we've arrived in our location, and we are in a bedroom, and being inspired by sort of the lines behind me and using those architectural features of the room. And that's what's creating this frame for our initial shot, which is more narrative, moody, genre-driven. We're still using daylight, though this could be shot at night, or you could black out the room, or take Visqueen outside and black out the exterior of the house. And what we've got here is the 1x2, same basic configuration that we saw in the studio. We've got the 1x2 softbox, we've got the hard diffusion in there, so this reads as just a single source. We've got the egg crate inside of here, so this grid, which is directing that light. It's obviously absorbing a lot of it too, so if we remove that, we would get more output, but I wanted it to be very directional. So that's this light, and then we move over here to the 1x1, and this is essentially set up the same way. We've got this red color. It's this deep red. Very different though in terms of the setup. It's just the mat itself with the hard diffusion egg crate just attached directly to it. We're battery powering the light. I'm using luminaire to control all of this stuff, so we can dial in intensities and color and stuff like that. And that's really the setup. So we can see what that looks like right here. That 1x1 is really just putting a little bit of a wrap around Ken's right side of his face. So we feel that red light coming around a little bit. So it's perfect with that 1x1. The rest is just the daylight that's coming through that window and through those blinds, and then just a couple of props in the background to, well, make your audience a little bit curious in terms of who this character is and what the deal is. Now, if it was a narrative and there was an entire sort of narrative behind a character, then we would understand why that red color is there and why it's motivated. So what I want to do now is just take this basic configuration and move it ever so slightly and change the color that's coming out of these two lights and our composition, so we can see how quickly and easily we can take something that is a little moody, a little darker, and use it in a more traditional interview style setup. So now we have made just a couple of changes to this setup here. What we've done is we've taken this 1x2. It's still set up with that softbox and the hard diffusion and the egg crate grid, but we've switched it over to daylight color temperature, and we're still side keying over here, moving Ken into a little bit of a different position. We're not going to be seeing the actual bed in this particular setup. And then over here, we've taken our 1x1 and also changed that to daylight. And we are just bouncing it off of the ceiling to get a little bit of a return here to get some fill. So more of a traditional interview setup, not as creepy as the first setup that we had, but that was intentional. And we're not playing with the lines of the room as much in terms of that, because this is obviously not a narrative style shot. It is for a more traditional interview setup, but it does show you that we can quickly and easily make a couple of changes here to get a different look and feel. All right, so as you can see, there are tons of options here with the Flex Cine lighting system from Westcott, and of course, you can buy these products individually, and they also sell them in many kit configurations. Hopefully this gives you a good overview of what you can do with all of this stuff, and thanks for watching.